The moment those explosive claims began circulating, the entire royal world seemed to freeze, because this was no ordinary disagreement, no routine palace rumor, and certainly no minor family misunderstanding. According to the shocking story emerging from royal circles, the battle had escalated into something far more dramatic, a clash involving Princess Diana's memory, alleged secret requests, royal outrage, and a warning so severe that it reportedly left palace insiders stunned. And at the center of the storm stood two women who could not appear more different in the eyes of their supporters and critics, Meghan Markle and Princess Anne. One fighting accusations she says are completely false, the other allegedly drawing a hard line in defense of the monarchy. But what really happened behind those palace walls? And why are so many people asking whether this confrontation became the point of no return? The controversy exploded after reports surfaced claiming that Earl Charles Spencer had privately disclosed information concerning requests allegedly connected to Princess Diana's gravesite and personal archive. Suddenly, a deeply emotional part of royal history was dragged into the center of a modern royal conflict. And that alone was enough to ignite public fascination, because whenever Princess Diana's name appears, emotions follow. Questions follow. Suspicion follows. According to the claims discussed within royal circles, Charles Spencer allegedly refused access to highly sensitive materials connected to his late sister. These were described as personal records, private memories, and treasured pieces of Diana's legacy that had remained protected for decades. The significance of such material cannot be overstated. To many people, Diana is not simply a historical figure. She remains a symbol, a legend, a memory that millions refuse to let fade away. What made the story even more explosive was the allegation that these requests were somehow connected to a future media project. Suddenly, critics began asking difficult questions. Were private memories being sought for historical preservation, or for something more commercially valuable? The debate spread across social media like wildfire. Supporters defended Meghan, critics attacked her, and the truth became buried beneath waves of accusation and speculation. As the controversy grew, another detail captured attention. Reports claimed that Meghan had allegedly reached out directly rather than through traditional royal channels. Whether that mattered or not became the subject of endless debate. But in royal stories, small details often become enormous clues. Every email, every phone call, every private conversation becomes part of a larger puzzle. What fascinated observers most was the emotional contradiction at the center of the narrative. Critics argued that Meghan had spent years expressing feelings of isolation from royal life while allegedly seeking deeper access to one of the monarchy's most emotionally significant legacies. Supporters countered that such claims were being unfairly weaponized against her. The result was chaos. Absolute chaos. And then came the leak, because somehow information from what was described as a confidential royal discussion allegedly escaped palace walls. Once that happened, there was no containing it. Newspapers seized upon the story. Commentators rushed to offer opinions. Television panels debated every detail. Social media transformed into a battlefield. Suddenly, old accusations resurfaced. Past controversies returned. Long-forgotten arguments were dragged back into public view. Critics began connecting unrelated incidents together, treating every appearance, every photograph, every piece of jewelry, and every public statement as evidence of a much larger pattern. The pressure intensified by the hour. Then, Meghan reportedly fought back. Instead of remaining silent, reports claimed she forcefully rejected the allegations being circulated. The accusations, according to her side of the story, were portrayed as false, misleading, and part of a broader effort to damage her reputation. The response transformed an already serious controversy into an all-out war of narratives. One side claiming exposure, the other side claiming victimization. And this was exactly the moment when Princess Anne reportedly entered the battlefield. Unlike many public royal figures, Anne has long maintained a reputation for discipline, directness, and unwavering loyalty to the institution. She is often viewed as one of the monarchy's toughest defenders. So when rumors emerged suggesting that she had become personally involved in addressing the crisis, attention immediately shifted toward her. What was she thinking behind closed doors? What conversations were taking place away from cameras? And why were insiders suddenly describing the atmosphere as one of cold determination rather than emotional outrage? According to reports, Anne allegedly believed certain boundaries had been crossed. The claim suggested she viewed the growing conflict not simply as a disagreement between individuals, but but as a challenge involving the monarchy itself. If true, that would explain why tensions appear to escalate so rapidly, because once Princess Anne decides a line has been crossed, palace watchers know something important usually follows. The real question was no longer whether the controversy would continue. The real question was how far it would go. And then the story allegedly took an even darker turn, because just when many people thought the controversy had reached its peak, whispers began emerging about information that supposedly existed far beyond the original archive dispute. Suddenly, attention shifted away from old accusations and toward claims of secret plans, hidden agendas, and explosive materials that, if true, could trigger one of the most damaging royal scandals in years. Whether those claims were accurate became almost secondary to the effect they produced. The atmosphere changed instantly. Commentators stopped discussing what had happened and started asking what might happen next. Rumors spread that individuals close to the situation had allegedly uncovered information suggesting attempts to gain access to private royal knowledge through unconventional means. Supporters dismissed the allegations as fantasy. Critics treated them as confirmation of their worst suspicions. Once again, the public found itself trapped between two completely different versions of reality. But what made the situation so fascinating was the reaction from inside royal circles. There was no dramatic public counterattack, no emotional television interviews, no endless public statements. Instead, according to reports, there was something far more unsettling. Silence, calculated silence, the kind of silence that makes people wonder what conversations are taking place behind closed doors. As speculation intensified, stories emerged describing Princess Anne as becoming increasingly convinced that stronger measures were necessary. For years, royal observers had viewed her as one of the monarchy's most dependable protectors. She rarely seeks attention. She rarely fuels controversy. But when she acts, people notice. And according to the narrative gaining traction among royal commentators, Anne had reached the conclusion that patience was no longer producing results. The conflict reportedly escalated into a tense private confrontation involving Prince Harry himself. Observers imagined the impossible position he allegedly found himself in, caught between loyalty to his wife and loyalty to the institution that had shaped his entire life. Every public appearance, every silence, every facial expression suddenly became the subject of intense scrutiny. And perhaps that was the most tragic aspect of the entire saga, the feeling that nobody could escape the consequences. Not Meghan, not Harry, not the palace. Everyone appeared trapped inside a cycle of accusation, denial, retaliation, and public judgment. As the story continued spreading internationally, public opinion became increasingly divided. Some people argued that Meghan was being unfairly targeted and transformed into a convenient villain. Others believed the controversy represented a pattern that could no longer be ignored. The arguments grew louder, the headlines became harsher, and the possibility of reconciliation seemed more distant than ever. Then came the alleged calls for decisive action. Reports claimed that Princess Anne pushed for a response that would establish a permanent boundary between the Sussex household and the monarchy. Whether such discussions truly occurred became almost irrelevant because the idea itself electrified royal watchers. Suddenly, people everywhere were debating consequences, accountability, and the future relationship between Harry, Meghan, and the royal family. The emotional weight of the situation only grew heavier because beneath all the headlines, accusations, and dramatic claims was a deeper question that nobody seemed able to answer. Could trust ever be rebuilt once it had been shattered? Could family bonds survive after years of public warfare? Or had the divide become too deep, too personal, and too public to repair? As global audiences watched the drama unfold, one image seemed to dominate the entire narrative: a monarchy determined to protect itself and a couple determined to defend their own version of events. Two sides, two realities, one endless battle for public belief. And that is why this story refuses to disappear, because every new revelation creates more questions than answers. Every denial inspires fresh suspicion. Every silence becomes a clue. Every statement becomes evidence for someone else's theory. Perhaps that is the real reason people remain captivated by this saga. It is no longer simply a royal controversy. It has evolved into a struggle over legacy, loyalty, reputation, and power. A battle where every move is analyzed, every motive questioned, and every relationship placed under a microscope. For now, the conflict appears far from over. The accusations continue to echo. The divisions remain visible. And somewhere behind palace gates and California walls, decisions are still being made that could shape the next chapter of this extraordinary royal drama.